to a spooky lunch with goosebumps. Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns by R.L. Stein. Chapter 16. Our screams echoed down the block. The fire flashed in the pumpkin head's eyes. I turned to Tabby and Lee. The light from the fiery jack-o'-lantern faces flickered over their faces. They stood calmly, staring at the grinning pumpkin heads. Tabby turned to me. Is this your idea of a joke? Were you trying to scare us? We know it's Shane and Shayna, Lee said. He tugged at one of the dark, loose, flowing costumes. Hey, Shane, how's it going? The two pumpkin heads remained silent. How did you get the fire to work? Do you have candles in there? Tabby demanded. How can you see? The pumpkin heads grinned back in silence. A lick of fire darted out from one of the jagged mouths. I shivered. These costumes were too good. I could hear the flames hiss inside the big orange heads. The costumes were dark green, like pumpkin vines. Why aren't Tabby and Lee frightened? I wondered. I expected Shane and Shanna to appear in something frightening, but I didn't expect anything as these fiery jack-o'-lantern heads. The costumes were great, but I felt so disappointed. Tabby and Lee were definitely not frightened. This Halloween is going to be a disaster like the others, I thought. I stepped up beside Walker. I couldn't see his expression under his ski mask. How do they do the fire? He whispered. It's really awesome. I nodded. But it didn't scare Tabby and Lee, I whispered back. It's early, Walker whispered. Shane and Shanna have just started. My cape had become tangled around my legs. I tugged it free and tossed it behind me. The two pumpkin heads still hadn't said a word. Tabby picked up her trick-or-treat bag and turned to me. You have to do better than that if you want to scare Lee and me, she said with a sneer. We're not scary cats like you two, Lee boasted. Flames darted out of the pumpkin heads' eyes. They both tilted their big heads as they stared at Tabby and Lee. How do they do that, I wonder? How do they control the flames? Do they have some kind of remote control? Well, are we going to stand here and freeze, or are we going to trick or treat? Tabby demanded. Let's do your block, I suggested to her. Tabby started to reply, but a hiss of fire from the nearest pumpkin head made her stop. Let's go somewhere else, the jack-o'-lantern said from somewhere inside the pumpkin head. His voice came out into a hoarse crackle, too harsh to be a whisper, a dry, choked sound. Somewhere else, his partner echoed. Her voice also came out in a hoarse crackle, like dry, dead leaves being crinkled together. Excuse me, Lee cried. We know a better neighborhood. The first pumpkin head crackled. The jagged mouth, cut through the thick pumpkin flesh, didn't move. The voice hissed from inside. The orange and yellow flames tossed in rhythm to the words. We know a better neighborhood. A neighborhood you won't forget. Tabby laughed. She rolled her eyes. Oh, wow, scary voices, she said sarcastically. Oh, I'm shaking, Lee teased. He and Tabby laughed together. Give us a break, guys, Tabby said to the pumpkin heads. Your costumes are pretty good, but they didn't scare us. So lose the creepy voices, okay? Yeah, Lee agreed. Let's go do some houses. It's getting late. Follow us. one of the pumpkin heads hissed. Follow us to a new neighborhood, a better neighborhood. They led the way down the street. Their big heads bounced on their shoulders as they walked. The fire flickered from their heads, casting a glow like lighted torches. What are they doing? Walker whispered in my ear. This isn't in the plan. Where are they taking us? I didn't know. Chapter 17. We walked 3 blocks, heading away from our houses. We passed a row of big stone houses set back on wide lawns behind tall hedges. The next block had an empty lot where someone had started to build a house and then stopped. The two pumpkin heads walked quickly, taking long strides. Their heads bounced on their shoulders. They kept their fiery faces straight ahead and didn't glance back at us. Where are we going? Lee demanded, jogging to catch up to them. He tugged at one of their shoulders. You're passing a lot of good houses across the street. The jack-o'-lantern creature didn't slow down. Let's try a new neighborhood, he crackled. Yes, his partner hissed. A new neighborhood, a better neighborhood. You'll see. They led us past the empty lot, past a row of small, dark houses. Where are we going? Walker whispered. He motioned to Shane and Shanna. What is their problem? Why are they doing this? They're starting to scare me. I'm sure they don't know what they're doing, I whispered back. I gazed around the block. I didn't see many other trick-or-treaters. It was getting late, and most of the little kids had already gone home. In the next driveway, two tall kids, a gorilla and a chubby clown, were pawing through their trick-or-treat bags. They had their heads lowered to the bags. We passed by them, and they didn't even look up. Hey, we're missing a lot of good houses, Lee protested. He pointed to a brick house on the corner. Can we stop there? Those people always give out handfuls of candy bars. Really, handfuls. The pumpkin heads ignored him and kept walking. Hey, whoa, stop, Tabby demanded. She and Lee both trotted up in front of the pumpkin heads. Stop! Come on! Whoa! A new neighborhood, one of them croaked. Let's try a new neighborhood. The other one echoed, a better neighborhood. A chill ran down my back. Shane and Shannon were acting so weird. I tugged my cape off a clump of weeds. The air suddenly felt colder and damped. I wrapped the cape around me. Up ahead, Lee fiddled with his bee antenna. I saw that Tabby's ballet slippers were soaked with mud. We followed the pumpkin heads across the street, and then they stepped off the sidewalk and started into a dark woods. Walker hurried up beside me. Even through his heavy makeup, I could see the worried expression on his face. Why are they taking us into the woods? He whispered. I shrugged. I guess they're getting ready to scare Tabby and Lee. Twigs and dead leaves crackled under our shoes as we made our way between the trees. A frightening thought flashed into my mind. I suddenly pictured the 4 people who had disappeared. 4 people vanished into thin air, never seen again. I remembered all of my mother's warnings. I remember how she told us to stay where there were a lot of kids and a lot of bright lights. I remember how she didn't even want me to go trick or treating tonight. This is wrong, I realized. Mom's advice was smart. We shouldn't be walking through the woods tonight. I knew. We shouldn't be away from the street, away from the brightly lit houses. We shouldn't go off by ourselves like this in the dark, creepy woods. A new neighborhood, A pumpkin head crackled from up ahead. Just past these woods, the other one whispered. A really good neighborhood. You'll see. The light from inside their heads flickered over the dark tangles of bare trees and tall weeds. My heart began to thump. I hurried to keep up with the others. Shane and Shanna are good friends, I told myself. I'm sure they know where they're going. But this isn't what we planned. This isn't what we planned at all. Do I have such a bad feeling about this? Chapter 18. Shane, Shanna, give us a break, Tabby complained shrilly. Look at me. Look at my ballerina skirt. She held up the front of the skirt. Even in the dim light, I could see the mud stain on the front. We have to get out of these woods, Tabby wailed angrily. Yeah, it's too dark, and we're wasting too much time, Lee agreed. His trick-or-treat bag got caught on a low tree limb. He tugged it hard to pull it loose. Shane and Shanna ignored the complaints, the big fiery pumpkins bouncing on their shoulders. They made their way steadily and quickly through the darkness of the woods. A few minutes later, we stepped out onto a narrow street. Seeing the bright street lights and rows of little houses, we all let out a happy cheer. Now we can trick or treat, one of the pumpkin heads croaked. I turned my eyes up and down the street. I saw house after house, all small, all on tiny lawns. Most of them had lights on in front. Many of them were decorated for Halloween. The houses stretched for blocks, two rows of brightly lit little houses, as far as I could see. This is an awesome neighborhood for trick or treating, I declared, starting to feel a lot better, a lot less frightened. Excellent, Lee agreed. We'll clean up here. Where are we? Walker demanded. How come I've never seen this neighborhood before? No one answered him. We were all too eager to get started. I poured some wet leaves off my cape and straightened my mask. Tromping through the woods had messed all of us up. We took a few seconds to get our costumes in better shape. Then the six of us hurried up to the first house. A young woman carrying a baby in one arm came to the door. She dropped miniature candy bars into our bags. The baby stared at the flaming pumpkin heads and smiled. At the next house, an elderly couple took forever getting to the door. Trick or treat, we shouted at the top of our lungs. They raised their hands to their ears. I guess they couldn't stand the noise. I'm sorry, but we don't have any candy, the old woman said. She dropped nickels into our bags, a nickel per bag. We hurried across the small yard to the next house. Two girls, about 7 or 8, greeted us at the door. Awesome costumes, one of them said to Shane and Shanna. They gave us little bags of M&Ms. This is cool, Lee declared as we hurried to the next house. The houses are so close together, Tabby added. We can do 100 houses in no time. Why didn't we ever come here before? Walker asked. Trick or treat! We screamed as we rang the doorbell on the next house. A teenage boy with long blonde hair and an earring in one ear answered the door. He snickered at our costumes. Cool, he muttered. Then he dropped packages of candy corn into our bags. On to the next house, and the next, and the next. We did the next block, stopping at every house. Then we covered 2 more blocks. The little houses seemed to stretch on forever. My trick or treat bag was nearly full. We stopped at the corner because Walker's shoe had come untied. While he bent down to tie it, we all stopped to catch our breath. Hurry up, a pumpkin urged Walker. Flames leaped angrily from his eye holes. Yes, hurry, the other one hissed. No time to waste. Give me a break, Walker murmured. I have a knot. As he struggled with his shoe, the two pumpkin heads bobbed and squirmed impatiently. Finally, Walker climbed to his feet and picked up his bulging trick-or-treat bag. The pumpkin heads were already leading the way to the next block of houses. I'm getting a little tired, I heard Lee whisper to Tabby. What time is it? My bag is nearly full, Tabby replied. With a groan, she shifted the heavy bag to her other hand. Hurry, a pumpkinhead insisted. Lots more houses to do. Lots, the other one hissed. We did 2 more blocks, both sides of the street, about 20 houses. My bag was filled to the top. I had to carry it in both hands. Walker's shoelace had come undone again. When he bent to tie it, it ripped in his hand. Now what I'm going to do, he murmured. Hurry, a pumpkinhead insists. More houses. I'm getting tired, Tabby complained, loud enough for everyone to hear this time. Me too, Lee agreed. And this trick-or-treating bag is getting heavy. Stupid shoelace, Walker muttered, still bent over his shoe. I guess it is getting pretty late, I said, gazing around. I don't see any other trick-or-treaters. I think they've all gone home. I pulled off my cape. It was all tangled and it was starting to choke me. I balled it up and tucked it under my arm. More houses, one of the pumpkin heads whispered. Hurry, lots more to do. The other one insisted in her dry, crackling voice. The yellow flames danced inside her head. But we want to quit, Lee whined. Yes, we're done, Tabby agreed shrilly. You can't quit, a pumpkinhead snapped. Huh? Lee's mouth dropped open. Keep going. You can't quit, the pumpkinhead insisted. They both appeared to float up, to rise up over us. The fires raged in their triangle eyes. The heads floated up over the dark caped bodies. You can't quit. You can't ever quit. 19. Ha ha, very funny. Tabby rolled her eyes, but I saw Lee step back in fear. His knees seemed to buckle and he nearly dropped his trick-or-treat bag. Another block, a pumpkinhead insisted. Another block, and then another. Whoa, wait a minute, Tabby protested. You can't boss us around like that. I'm going home. She turned and started to walk away, but the two pumpkin heads moved quickly to block her path. Let me go, Tabby protested. She darted sharply to the right, but the big pumpkin creatures floated with her. Their fiery grins appeared to grow wider, brighter. The two of them began circling us, floating silently. They swirled around us faster and faster until it looked as if we were surrounded by flames, a wall of leaping flames all around us. You will obey, came the crackling command. The flames pushed up from behind us, forced us forward. We had no choice but to obey them. We were prisoners, prisoners of their fire. An old man was standing at the door to the first house. He grinned at us as we stepped onto his front stoop. You kids are out kind of late, aren't you? He replied. Kind of, I replied. He dropped candy bars into our bags. Hurry, a pumpkinhead urged as we crossed the wet grass to the next house. Hurry! Lee's trick-or-treat bag was so heavy, he dragged it along the ground. I carried mine in both hands. Tabby complained to herself, muttering and shaking her head. We did both sides of the block. I didn't see any other kids out. No cars came by. Some of the houses were turning out their lights. Hurry! A pumpkinhead insisted. Lots more houses, lots more blocks. No way! Lee cried. No way! Tabby repeated. She tried to sound strong, but I heard a tremble in her voice. The jack-o'-lantern faces loomed over us once again. The fiery eyes stared out at us. Hurry! You can't stop now. You can't! But it's too late, I protested, and my shoe keeps coming off, Walker chimed in. We don't want to trick or treat anymore, Tabby told them shrilly. Now, hurry! Lots more houses. This is the best neighborhood. No way, Tabby and Lee repeated together. They started to chant, no way, no way, no way. Our bags are full, I said. Mine is starting to tear, Walker complained. No way, no way, Tabby and Lee chanted. The two jack-o'-lanterns began to swirl around us again, circling faster and faster, rebuilding the wall of flames. You must not stop, one of them hissed. You must keep going. They swirled closer, so close I could feel the scorching heat of their flames. And as they swirled, they began to hiss like snakes about to strike. The hissing grew louder, louder, until it sounded as if we were surrounded by snakes. My heavy trick-or-treat bag fell from my hands. Stop! I screamed up at them. Stop it! You're not Shane and Shanna. Fire leaped from their eyes. Their hisses became a high wail. You're not Shane and Shanna, I shrieked. Who are you? They're 20. They swirled to a stop. Bright flames licked out of their grinning mouths. Their shrill wails bounced off the bare trees, cutting through the heavy night silence. Who are you? I demanded again, my voice trembling. My whole body shook. I suddenly felt as if the cold of the night had seeped inside me. Who are you? Have you done something to our friends? No reply. I turned to Walker. The light of the flames flickered over his face. Through his black makeup, I could see his frightened expression. I swallowed hard and turned to Tabby and Lee. They were both sneering and shaking their heads. Is this your idea of a dumb Halloween joke? Tabby demanded. She rolled her eyes. Wow, did you really think Lee and I would fall for this? Oh, I'm scared. I'm scared, Lee cried sarcastically. He made his knees knock together. Look, I'm shaking like a leaf. He and Tabby let out a loud laugh. These are real clever costumes, great fire effects, but we know it's Shane and Shanna, Lee declared. No way you're going to scare us, Drew. No way, Tabby repeated. Look! She and Lee reached out their hands. They each grabbed a pumpkin head and tugged. Whoa! They pulled the fiery pumpkin heads off the creature's shoulders. And then all four of us screamed because the two costume figures had no heads underneath.
To be continued.